Mark, what do you make of that whistleblower that has been talked about by the Azimio Brigade and Raila Odinga's remarks in that interview?
You know, first, we must understand where Kenya is politically. Where Kenya is politically, we came from an election where a third of the electorate didn't vote, a third voted for the president, and a third voted for Azimio, by and large, because the numbers, the difference was not that big. Now, the problem with that is that when the difference between you and your opponent is slim, there is always that sense that if I back and bite at you enough, I might catch up with you. That's number one. But also number two, the presidency is like buying a car. The moment you get into your new car and drive it out of the showroom, you lose certain value. And the truth is, the president where he sits today, if we were to do an opinion poll, there are certain hustlers who are disappointed with the price of power, the price of petrol, etc. So Raila Odinga at this moment has an ear. He has an ear. Why? Because the people of Kenya, those who voted for him, some who abstained and some who have now have buyer's remorse, are looking to him to see where do we go. Now, the truth of the matter is that if he can leverage, and I'm now speaking in terms of the psychology of communication, if he can leverage the question of the legitimacy of the presidency of one Dr. William Samoei Arap Ruto upon the minds of the people, and compound that with the question of has he delivered in the promises he gave you, then he is lying to you, and therefore I can question his legitimacy. So in terms of the psychology of the strategy, it is very clear to me that the Kenyan people are being treated to the questions of legitimacy, the question of can you trust the person who's president, knowing full well that the challenges the president faces today might not be resolved as quickly as Kenyans hope. And that's the question. Now, what is Raila Odinga's game plan? Raila Odinga's game plan must be one, because it cannot be legal. Right. The legal solution flew out of the window. The answer for him is political. Now, is it political to the extent of making him president? Maybe, maybe not. But is it political to the extent that he will make William Ruto uncomfortable and make William Ruto and Rigathi Gachagua answer him at funerals when they are supposed to be attending to national business? Yes. And for as long as he is able to hold that irritating factor over this presidency, he will continue to do so. That is the strategy that is at play here. It is no longer a legal question. And if the numbers that showed up to that rally and how they were reacting to that particular rally, and the pain we are feeling at the till when we go pay for unga continues, then I'll tell you, Raila Odinga has the ability to irritate, to scratch, and to make sure that this particular government is worried. Now, what is the answer? UDA needs to make a decision. And that decision is whether they will sit comfortably on that seat of the presidency or not. Because if they decide to scratch at every itch that comes their way, they will look very uncomfortable on that seat. What they need to do in terms of managing the psychology and the communication coming out from them is they need to look focused, they need to look like they're delivering for the Kenyan people, and the more they look like that, the better for their presidency.
Javas, what's the game plan for Raila Odinga?
Well, you see, Ben, I said earlier that Raila Odinga is a gifted politician. He's also a gifted irritant politically. And one thing about Raila Odinga is that he hates being ignored. And that is one thing that is disturbing him. The fact that age is not his friend and time is also not on his side, he is worried that the sunset years of his politics could have him politically ignored, especially by the centers of power. And that's one thing that's disturbing Raila Odinga. On the question of legitimacy, as Mark reflects on it, I would say this, that it is not about the approximately 6 million that voted for Raila Odinga and then about 8 million that absconded, and that when you tally all this together and sum, then you say that it will tilt against the president because of the majority of numbers this other side. Look, when it comes to exercising rights, political rights or any other right, you are at liberty. One cannot and will not argue that those who did not exercise their political right of voting, then they are in favor of Raila Odinga and they would have voted for him. If they would have voted for Raila Odinga, then they would have walked to the polling booth and voted for Raila Odinga.
No one has made that argument.
No, it has been made. It has been made. Additionally, I would say this, that I think the gods of election have disowned Raila Odinga. Raila Odinga is an active politician, but is a very lousy candidate. And that is why his partnership or friendship with Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta, former president, made him pocket his hands and walk into a very competitive election. Because he assumed that with the blessing of the system on his side, as it then was, then it would work for him. And he realized that actually, even if you stay close to the river, as long as you don't go to fetch the water, you will continue washing your face with the spittle. All right. And that's that's the unfortunate situation of Raila Odinga. All right. And so when we look at the options that he has, Raila Odinga, as a matter of fact, is just keen on finding himself politically significant in this Dr. William Ruto's regime by way of a handshake. We cannot, and let me tell you this, when Honorable Raila Odinga at Kamukunji said these words, that President William Ruto should not reconstitute IBC alone, that, of course, itself was indicative that he wanted a consultative process. When Raila Odinga is talking about a consultative process, he's not referring to the nearly 74 political parties that are registered in this country. He's talking about him being on that table with the president. All right. And that itself is a pathway to a handshake. Sadly,
you know, Ben, this handshake thing, needs to be...
But let's face it, Ben.
I want us to talk about that handshake thing.
Yes. How many handshakes have we had in this country? Close to 5.
All right. So Raila Odinga has said he does not want a handshake.
He wants it.
He said that. I'll come back to you for that. Martin.
Yes.
In Kamukunji, he said very animatedly that I do not want a handshake with you, Mr. President. The president said, I will not succumb to, you know, your pressure and give you a handshake. So that's the situation. Do you think that is the ultimate goal here by the
I don't think that this issue of handshake, I think we're overplaying this issue. And again, this is when I listen to Javas here, the people who advise the UDA guys keep on misleading them. Why do they keep talking about handshake? They told us handshake is that took the unga up, handshake is that took petrol up, and all the ills of the past were handshake. Now, these things are all up and they're going up and taxes are going up and handshake is not there. So this thing about handshake is an irritant. It's something that doesn't make sense. And to say, oh, that what Raila is looking for is handshake is to miss the political issues, is to miss the reality of Kenyan politics. Because what Kenyans are doing to, or what Raila is doing to Ruto, is what Ruto was doing to Uhuru. And was Ruto looking for political handshake? The point is that opposition is the nature of the political game, even though the president is saying he wants to organize opposition. No. So whatever is happening, and Raila has every right to talk the way he's talking, I will defend his rights any day about it. The point is that then the reactions that are coming from the government side are totally misplaced. Oh, they want handshake, so what? The point is this: if this country is going to burn, we will have to sit down on a table and fix it. It's not about Raila or Ruto. No. We must fix this country. And this country needs, people need food, people need to have affordable cost of living. There are many things that need to be done. Right. And as long as these things are not in place, the same lies that we were told about handshake will revisit this current regime. So we better face the truth.